Hey, welcome back everyone. It is now May 8th of 2021. Now, it's pretty safe to say that by far the most anticipated TV shows for Disney Plus when it comes to Star Wars is, of course, question here. We've got Star Wars Andor, Star Wars Ahsoka, and Star Wars Kenobi. Those are the three TV shows that fans are really looking forward to the most, aside from The Mandalorian Season 3 and 4. So far, The Bad Batch Episode 1 and The Bad Batch Episode 2 have been performing very well for the Star Wars fandom. You know, a lot of great feedback coming from the fans. And Disney's actually seeing that their animated TV shows are really starting to pick up. You know, last year with the Clone Wars Season 7, let me tell you, I mean, that really did lay down the foundation for a lot of other animated, possibilities of what's to come in the future. So, with that being said, what's really interesting all has to do with Jon Favreau, George Lucas, and Kathleen Kennedy, and exactly what's been happening over at Lucasfilm. Now, there's been a lot of changes over the past couple of months. In fact, even last year, in early 2020, when Kathleen Kennedy lost her creative power over pretty much all the projects, except for the Acolyte TV series by Leslye Headland, that was the major change. Now there's a lot more changes coming to Disney and Lucasfilm as companies and how it's going to affect the Star Wars brand. We also know that John and Dave are going to be a big part of this, of really kind of creating these game-changing possibilities of Star Wars and really implementing tons of Star Wars Legends content that's going to really be inserted into the new Disney canon. Now, with that being said, of course, what's really exciting all has to do with Disney's major plan that they have with creator George Lucas in the near future and exactly what it means for Jon Favreau as well. So we're going to get deeper into all of this. So with that being said, with both Disney and Lucasfilm now developing their new Star Wars projects, like Star Wars Andor and the Kenobi series, it's best described that creators Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are actively creating The Mandalorian Season 3 and 4 back-to-back, while Kathleen Kennedy is still working on the Acolyte TV show. Now, it's noted that Lucasfilm has a big plan that's in the works intended to be placed in the near future. It's described that the higher-ups over at Lucasfilm are planning to bring in creator George Lucas as the president of Lucasfilm once Kathleen Kennedy leaves, and that Lucas will serve as the president of his own company to call the shots on a business level as well for Star Wars. Now, this resolution is described to be a temporary thing for the company before they decide to actually bring in Jon Favreau as the president of the company, where, of course, everybody else related to the overall company over at Lucasfilm, a lot of changes are also being made. It's described that George Lucas has already had conversations with Disney's higher-ups, such as many of the board members, by agreeing to take part in this big plan for Star Wars, and could very well allude to what George Lucas had teased the other day of him making a huge announcement this fall to the Star Wars fandom that will take them by surprise. So let's recall that George Lucas did in fact tease a major announcement this fall that's going to catch the fans by surprise, and it does indeed involve Star Wars and himself. So that's also something to take note of. Further, as of now, Disney is in a desperate mode to get Star Wars back on track for the future of the brand to survive. Lucas is also said to have another meeting with Disney as early as May 18th to go over the dates and plans for all of this, as they are about to also hire new employees at Lucasfilm, also in the coming months, which could also allude to Disney firing some of the more incompetent employees over at Lucasfilm as a company, of course. Now, Jon Favreau is described to also be aware about all of this behind the scenes, as well as Dave Filoni, who also holds an interest in running the company in the near future. So this is a major plan that the Disney higher-ups actually have in order to really kind of smoothly and eventually run it over to Jon Favreau. Now, obviously, when we go ahead and examine what's been happening with Lucasfilm as a company, right? There's been a lot of creative differences over the years. Kathleen Kennedy, that's how she acts in her nature with the projects. We've seen what happened with, The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, and especially Solo, which lost a lot of money. I mean, the box office results on that film was disastrous, to say the least. Bringing in Ron Howard at last minute having him reshoot 80% of the film only cost them millions upon millions more. So when we dive deeper into this big scenario that Disney has with George Lucas becoming the president of Lucasfilm, alright, that's a very big deal because obviously they now know what the fans want to see in order for things to actually take shape in a more positive sense. And as I said before, this most likely alludes to what George Lucas had said, that this fall there's going to be a big announcement involving himself in Star Wars. So that could very well fit right in with this big discussion that's happening over at Disney. Now, we've actually talked about this a couple days ago, that the higher-ups over at Disney, some of the board members that originally had supported Kathleen Kennedy are no longer supporting Kathleen Kennedy. And that was all because of Jon Favreau, thankfully. Pretty much he's the guy that turned things around, at least for the most part, not just on a business level, but also on a creative scale. We saw what he did with Mando Season 2, by bringing back some of the beloved characters and throwing that into the storyline, like Bo-Katan, Boba Fett, Ahsoka Tano, and Luke, throwing all of them into Season 2, and how they're also going to return in Season 3 and 4, setting up these new shows. Basically, Mando is the foundation of all these new shows that are going to branch off of that one. So that's a very interesting way of putting it. Now, related to Kathleen Kennedy, she's no longer going to be working on the Acolyte TV series at some point in June of this year. So, on a creative level, she will no longer be involved. She's doing her thing right now when it comes to the scripts and what's to be done for the show, which, by the way, is aimed to become more than 12 episodes now for one season. It's a limited series still, with the possibility of branching into a second season if it performs well, which I don't believe it's going to do well, because we all know what it's driven by, but we've already discussed that. When we look at everything related to, of course, what's been going on since earlier this year, Kathleen Kennedy has had, a lot of creative differences with Leslye Headland, of all people, somebody that you would not expect her to have differences with on the actual set of the show during pre-production. Now, sets are being built for the Acolyte TV series because they do plan to begin filming at some point in time this actual summer. Alright, so that's another thing to take note of. As far as George Lucas, obviously, this is something that I believe that he's been wanting to actually do for the longest time, and this most likely is like a dream come true for him, coming back onto Star Wars in a very big way. The fact that they're going to use him temporarily as the president before they transfer over to either Jon Favreau or somebody else out there. We actually talked about this last year, that they do have 3 permanent solutions: Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and somebody else that we're currently still unaware of to take over the company as president. So the other thing that I think a lot of fans need to know that's very important as well is that Star Wars Celebration of 2022 is also going to be a very important time when major announcements are going to be made as well. So it's not just this fall, it's also next year that's going to have a lot of reveals and announcements and surprises for this Star Wars fandom. So keep your eyes open for Celebration next year. It's coming closer and closer, and I just can't believe the time is almost there, to the point where we're back in 2020, it seems so far away. Now we're just getting closer to Celebration. So like I said before, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know about all of this in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.